Hello, everybody. This is Bill Hahn Jr., and we left off a few days ago talking about the Joel Grannas controversy at FL2K. And man, a lot has happened in the days since. Of course, there's been a match race, and there's been a bit of controversy. Well, okay, a lot of controversy. And I'm not going to go over in any great detail what was in my first video. That's out there if you want to take a look. But I just wanted to touch on a few more points and see if we can maybe find some clarity in all of this going forward. Of course, if we go back, we know that the incident that occurred here was Joel Grannas missed the call for the Premier Stick Shift class at FL2K. He did not show up for the semifinal, and he is of the opinion that there was only one call that he did not hear, and that he was therefore overlooked when they sent the class without him. Couple of things to unpack here, and one of them is, of course, the track was using a texting system as well, for which Joel was signed up for. But if we look at what we know about cell service at racetrack during big events, there's generally no way to assure that you're going to get these things on a timely manner. The text system is a great backup, but it's a backup at best. And we've all been at the racetrack with our phone in our pocket. Can you hear that thing with a single text tone? I can't. I joked with somebody in the day since, what you need to do is Bluetooth the phone into a 1,000-watt stereo in your trailer, choose the most obnoxious notification tone you could, and just make it rattle the sides of the trailer when it happened. Okay, but that said, texting in and of itself is not enough. It's a good backup. We still rely on the PA calls. And we still rely on the fact that in instances where a racer does not show up for the call, especially in a critical round like a semi or a final, we'll take every available option to get that racer to the lanes. We'll call him or her personally over the PA, and maybe more than once if the first call didn't work. We'll stop the class. We'll do whatever we can to get that racer to the lanes. And anybody who's been going to the races for any amount of time knows that this is not exceptional. This is not hand-holding. This is just what we do. Because you've heard it done. I've heard it done countless times. I think it's even been done in my case. This is what we do. Didn't happen. All right, so again, not trying to point fingers here. There's enough blame to go around. I asked Joel, what was the first thing you did when you realized that they went without you? Did you go up to the tower? Did you talk to him? Did you just try to get some explanation? Joel said no. This is a problem. Yeah, Joel definitely should have not just gone straight to the internet. And in his internet posting, he implied, I don't know that he overtly said out loud, but he said, hey, this is dirty. Why would the class that Cletus/Garrett, and of course, when I talk of Cletus or Garrett, I'm talking about the same person. That's Garrett Mitchell, a.k.a. Cletus McFarland. Why wouldn't the one class that he is competing in, why wouldn't they take every possible caution to not have an incomplete field go down? I mean, the one thing that the co-owner of the track, which Garrett is co-owner, the one class that he's in, man, that's the one you got to go 1,000% towards making sure that there aren't even the slightest hint of impropriety. Was there an intentional effort to not get Joel to the lanes? Obviously, I can't say that. I'm not even going to imply that. Was there an inadequate amount of calls to get him to the lanes? I think so, and that could just be an oversight. That could just be something that was overlooked for any number of reasons. In the last video, we talked about these sheets that I use for my calls when I'm announcing. Keeps everything very organized, very, verifiable. But that said, I've always recommended to people, if you don't know what's going on, if you're questioning what's going on, run up to the staging lanes. Find out. The run order, the lanes you're going to run out of. They are typically, the same throughout the weekend. And you can see at a glance what's going on. If you don't know what's going on by that, go ask the lane boss. Say, hey, when's my class going to run? And they got a lot on their plates, too. They may not be, completely cordial. They may go, hey, I got a lot to do, but, we'll be up here in probably about a half hour. We're just going to run those next, There you go. You got your information. So definitely Joel could have handled himself a little better. But, in the aftermath of this, we saw the match race. And, boy, ballyhooed, wonderful thing for publicity for everybody. But the match race took us to a place where I just want to touch on real quick. After the match race, of course, Joel lost. His car did not make a full pass. And, he was understandably not happy. And he made a post to the internet that really just kind of unleashed every demon in hell. And his post was not directed at Cletus, but it was directed at Cletus's followers who'd been dragging him along around the internet for days by this point. And, he used a couple of words, which I won't repeat here. But again, this was one give back to literally thousands of abusive posts towards him in days. So, we're talking about proportionate response here. What happened next is something that I never want to see happen again in this sport. Joel received death threats. Joel received indications that he would not be seen again after World Cup finals, that his shop would be burned down. Joel's wife received messages of a sexually perverse nature that I'm not even going to try to tell you about here. His business received negative reviews on Google and on Facebook, and this type of mob mentality can't ever happen again. This makes us all look horrible. Now, Cletus has millions of followers, and I am not accusing them all of having taken part in this. Obviously, they didn't. Obviously, there's always a few bad apples in any large group, but there's nothing we can do to keep them out of there. I understand that. But I'm just hoping that as a result of all this, we can try to keep this more contained in the future. I mean, good Lord. Whatever Joel did, and however he, irked these people, this was not a proportionate response. This was an absolutely horrifying thing to watch. And again, it looks bad for the sport. It looks bad for sponsors. It looks bad for me. It looks bad for you. It looks bad for everybody when there's people involved in what we're doing in the sport we love that will act this way towards a fellow racer, much less a decorated fellow racer, much less another human being. But there's bad people out there. And, Garrett tried to tamp it down in the days after the match race. I give him credit. Obviously, he doesn't have control over these people. He said as much. And they're going to do what they're going to do. But, one of the other things that I just wanted to touch on is that this type of abuse leveled towards a racer does also have another particularly disturbing outcome. And that is it will intimidate future racers from being able to speak their minds. One racer, even if he controls, or I should say commands, hundreds or thousands of fans, has no voice against somebody with millions of people behind him, and some percentage of them willing to go just into very dark places. So that's all I've got to say. There was definitely room for improvement. There's blame to go around, okay? Joel should have been more aware. The track could have done a better job of making him aware. There was a lot of mistakes made here as far as how people reacted. All I'm asking for, all I really want to get through here is, it doesn't matter if it's Joel Grannas or Joe Blow. We don't need to ever treat another racer like this again. And I'm not trying to tell you this because I'm a better man. I just want us all to be better people. Bill Hahn Jr., over and out.